You're watching Uterson Neck, and this is part 1 of a tutorial on fixing security cameras that aren't working. In this series, we'll show you step by step how to fix camera problems in a simple way, without any special tools. Even if you've never worked with security cameras before, following these steps will help you get your cameras working again. But before moving forward, keep in mind that you should watch this video only if at least one camera is working. If none of your cameras are working, there's no functional camera for testing, and all cameras share the same power supply. You should watch part 2. But if none of your cameras are working, and each camera has its own power supply, you should watch part 3. If none of your cameras are working and you're not sure what type of power supply they use, check around the DVR area. That's usually where you'll find the power supply or the individual power adapters for the cameras. But if you still can't figure it out, don't worry, we can guide you through it. We offer free support for all kinds of technical issues. All we ask in return is that you subscribe and like the video to help us continue creating content. Our support contact info is in the video description and in a pinned comment. Once you know which video applies to your case, you'll find the links to parts 2 and 3 in the description and in the pinned comment. You should also see on-screen cards for both videos. Just tap or click the one you want to watch. Now, let's take a look at a standard security camera setup. This part is especially helpful if you haven't seen the other videos and don't have experience with security cameras, because it will make it easier to follow the tests we'll be showing. A standard setup usually includes a DVR, which displays, records, and transmits camera footage, not only to a connected monitor, but also to mobile phones and computers through the network. It also includes the cameras themselves, which can vary in brand, model, and technology, ranging from older analog types to more modern HD versions. For video transmission, installers typically use video cables with BNC connectors. These are often coaxial cables, but in some cases people also adapt UTP cables for the job. The system also requires a power supply and power wires with P4 connectors. Each camera can have its own dedicated power supply, or all cameras can share a single one, which may be a honeycomb-style unit or a simple power supply with the wires spliced together. When powered, the cameras capture video and send it to the DVR. Now that you know what a standard security camera installation looks like, let me show you a simple test. This test will help you find out if a camera that isn't working is getting any power at all from the power supply. It's a quick check that will be really useful once you start going through the troubleshooting steps we'll cover in this video. If a camera isn't working and you don't have any special tools, the first thing to check is whether it's receiving power. To do this, cover the camera's light sensor and see if the infrared LEDs turn on. These LEDs handle night vision. The sensor activates the LEDs when the area gets dark, illuminating the scene with infrared light so the camera can capture video even in darkness. Infrared light is invisible to the human eye, but when the LEDs are on, you might see a faint red glow. If you don't see this glow, most phone cameras can still detect the infrared light. This is especially useful at night or in dark areas, because using your phone camera can quickly confirm whether the camera is powered and the infrared LEDs are working. But keep in mind that this may not work with iPhones, as they often have a filter that blocks infrared light. Now that you know the basics, let's start the tests. But before moving forward, make sure the cameras not displaying video aren't being blocked by a DVR setting. For example, some DVRs have a digital mode. When a channel is set to digital, it won't show video from a camera connected to the DVR's BNC input. Make sure there isn't any setting like this enabled on your DVR. Also, check whether the non-working cameras are compatible with the DVR. Some DVRs cannot display video from incompatible cameras. Here's a quick tip. If the cameras were working before and then stopped, they're compatible with your DVR. And if all the cameras are the same brand, model, and technology, you can assume the non-working ones are also compatible. You only need to check compatibility if it's the first time using these cameras with this DVR, or if they're from different brands, models, or technologies than a working camera. If you need help, contact our technical support. Once the DVR settings are correct and cameras are compatible, we can move on to the tests. Since some cameras aren't working, the first thing to check is the DVR's video inputs. Start by disconnecting a camera that is currently showing video on the DVR. You'll use this camera to test the inputs where the non-working cameras are connected. BNC connectors have a locking mechanism, so to disconnect the cable, first twist it to unlock and then pull it out. Next, disconnect the cameras that aren't working. Now, connect the working camera to each of the inputs where the non-working cameras were. Watch the corresponding channel on the DVR. If the video shows up on every channel, all DVR inputs are fine. You can move on. If the video doesn't appear on a channel, that input might be faulty. In this case, you can test the non-working cameras on a functional DVR input to see if any of them work. Once you've done this and know that a DVR input is indeed faulty, you'll need someone to check or repair the DVR or replace it. But before doing that, make sure it's not just a configuration issue in the DVR. Once all DVR inputs are tested and working, the next step is to check the camera's power supplies. You only need to do this if each camera has its own power adapter. If all cameras share a single supply, skip this step. Testing individual adapters is simple. Use the functional camera to test each non-working camera's adapter, one at a time. If the camera doesn't display video, the adapter is faulty and needs replacing. Test all adapters and replace any that fail. As an extra check, you can use a working adapter to test each non-working camera. This helps identify if the camera itself is the problem. Once the power supplies are verified, you'll know which cameras still aren't functioning. From here, since the power supplies are all working, the testing process is the same whether cameras have individual adapters or share a power supply. The next step is to test the cables of the non-working cameras using the functional camera. Remove the functional camera from its current location and connect it to the end of the cable you want to test, replacing the non-working camera. If the video appears on the DVR, the cable is fine, and the original camera may need replacing. But don't discard the camera just yet. We'll soon record a video showing how to check if the camera is actually defective or if it's just a signal range issue. On the other hand, if no video appears when you connect the working camera to the cable, cover the light sensor to see if the infrared LEDs turn on. If LEDs don't light, check the P4 connector and power wires and replace if necessary. But if the LEDs do light, the issue is with the BNC connectors or the video cable. Fix or replace them as needed. After resolving any cable issues, reconnect the original camera and check its video. If the original camera's video appears on the DVR, everything is fine. The problem is solved. But if no video appears, you'll need to replace the camera. Keep in mind, though, that we'll record a video later showing how to check whether the camera is actually defective or if it's just a signal range issue. Repeat this process for each non-working camera cable. Following these steps should help you fix cameras that aren't working. If you still have issues or questions, leave a comment or contact us. We've kept this video concise but easy to follow, even for beginners. We also plan to record a more detailed version of this tutorial in the future. Make sure to subscribe, turn on notifications, and like the video to support our content. Thanks for watching, God bless, and see you next time.